Tea? Yeah? Did you want milk and sugar? Oh, you've got a sweet tooth, haven't you? Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Tea, anyone? Okay, so welcome back guys. It feels like a long while, but it hasn't. It was only 2 weeks ago that I interviewed the amazing Teresa. Didn't she do so well? And I can't wait to interview so many more parents with so many of their own stories. You know, you can have a child with the same disability, the same diagnosis, but your story is so different. So I've got a lot of traveling to do actually, because there are so many people that have reached out to me, as well as young people and adults with disabilities. So I'm going to be very busy and I'm excited, really excited about this. But if there's anyone that you know that has a disability, or families, or someone at school, share this channel with them. Share this channel. Subscribe yourself. If you haven't already, it might be the first time you've seen me. Maybe have a look at my previous videos, see if you like me or not. I think you will.
Oh my God! Wow!
I just want to acknowledge one thing first. So yesterday was the 21st of March 2022, or as my American family would say, March 21st. And it was World Down Syndrome Day. So to all the families watching, if you've got a Down syndrome child, or if you're Down syndrome yourself, just know we see you. You are doing an amazing job. I have a friend who has a teenager who has got Down syndrome, and he's progressing so well. Maybe I'll get to interview her soon. And also there was something I saw on Instagram, and I'm so blown away by it, because this mum turned around and put on her profile, there's nothing down about it. And it just talks about the beautiful journey of her and her child. You know, obviously there are the downsides to so much, but it's mainly people's perception of what we can't do, what our children can't do, as opposed to what they can do. Following on from my 8 signs of autism, I'll see if I can get it up on the screen for you to have a look if you haven't seen it already. So in that video, I talk about the 8 signs that I had seen in my son. Following that video, I ended by saying, if you do have concerns about your child, please speak to a GP. Now, some of you have children under 5 years old, and the general rule, should I say, or what I was told, is speak to the health visitor. I'm going to speak from my experience, which was pre-pandemic. So I would say 2 years on. So my son was born in 2014. So 2016, as he was approaching 2, I briefly mentioned it before, that the nursery, this wonderful nursery manager that has moved on, said, "Mum, we've got concerns about your son." And it's nothing to do with the speech, but it's about his interaction in regards to play. That was a massive indicator for them. Following on from that, my son was meant to have a 2-year health check. You know, when your child turns 2, they might invite you in, the health visitor team will invite you in so that they can do an assessment. So when it came to his 2-year and I had concerns, I thought, okay, let me just wait. So 2 years came, and then I didn't receive any appointment. I was like, okay, give it a couple of weeks. And then I thought, no, my concerns are now increased. It got to about 2 years and a month, and I was like, okay, I need to know what's going on. So I had called our local health visiting team, and they were saying, look, really apologetic, we've got a really long waiting list. And just to bear in mind, parents, that waiting list is probably doubled or tripled, or I can't even imagine what that waiting list is like now. They said they'll get in touch with me, and they didn't. So what I did, I wrote a letter, old school, just a letter to say, dear health visiting team, said my name, I have a child who's 2, and I have, concerns about his development, and I shared the concerns about what the nursery had mentioned as well. And I have to say, I got a phone call back within a week or so. So I'm saying there's what I tell other people. It's not easy. I understand that. It really isn't easy, but there's times when we can get really frustrated and really upset about how slow things are progressing. But my advice would be turn that energy into something productive. So instead of getting angry on the phone to professionals, turn that energy into writing, into emailing, so that there is a record of your concerns and having reached out to the services. Well, I got a phone call very quickly from not just a health visitor, but a specialised health visitor, and she made an appointment with me to come round to see my son. And I'm going to share more detail in another video about that, but I just wanted to focus on the next steps. She saw him, and I then made a call to our GP. But I find that when the concerns are really significant, the health visitors will tell you to contact the GP anyway. So just contact your GP. Or your GP may ask you, what are the concerns you have? I spoke about the speech delay. I spoke about the interaction with his play and parallel. I don't think I knew the term parallel play at the time, but about his interaction with his peers. I also spoke about his repetitive behaviour, as I mentioned in that other video about how he liked to jump and things like that. I do believe that the GP did ask questions about his milestones, and then a referral was sent. Now, because of the pandemic, your GP may or may not be seeing their patients face to face. You have to really highlight your concerns, and in our case, a referral was made to the paediatrician, the community paediatrician. We had to wait about 6 weeks, I would say. We then got a telephone call from the paediatric team, and this might be at a centre like a child and family centre, where they might have the paediatrician, the speech and language, the dietitian, all under sort of one roof. So got a telephone call from the receptionist just to say that they received the referral from the GP, and she gave me an appointment. And I remember being in the car feeling so excited, because the appointment was within, I think, either 2 to 3 weeks, because I think she had a cancellation. So I was like, great, this is really good. What she said is that she was going to send some forms over to us, and the forms we needed to complete before we attended the appointment. So it was quite a lot of forms, okay? So just bear in mind, if you've not done this before, parents, you really need to have some time and space to be filling out these forms. So you might have to wait till your children have gone to bed, or if they're at school, but just make sure you have that time to complete those forms. We had paper copies, it was sent through the post, which I prefer, to be honest, sometimes, just having something tangible there and coming back to it. Forms were very similar to what the GP had asked me, but there was a real heavy focus on the child's development and milestones from birth. Callum is my first child, so I've spoken to other parents before where they may have 2 or 3 children, and their child with additional needs is their second child. So straight away they've made that comparison and they thought, something's not right here. With me, on the other hand, with Callum being my first, and being advised that children take a while to catch up, depending, you know, all children have their own ability. It wasn't highlighted to me. He didn't stand out. It was only when, as I said, past 2, I thought, okay. I remember thinking 2-year-olds usually say no and can be quite defiant, and didn't have any of those issues with Callum. You know, he just kind of got on with sort of playing with his blocks in the corner and being very happy. And I thought, oh, okay, you're not even attempting to get into the cupboards where the soap powder is and things like that. He just didn't care about that. We then had our initial consultation, and bear in mind you have the forms with you, so a lot of the time you're going to find you're repeating your story, but in some ways that's understandable for the initial assessment unless you sort of send off the forms to them beforehand to read. And of course my son was with me. We'll ask questions about the milestones, what our current concerns were, did he go to nursery, what were their concerns, and you know, they take down the details of the nursery because they want to make sure, you know, let's get some more information from another agency or another service, which is brilliant, you know, especially if you and the nursery are on the same page. If you're not, well, that is a different story. All of that information is recorded by the paediatrician, and I remember the paediatrician asked my son to sit down at a table and presented him with some toys, including a dolly, to see if he would follow her instructions, and I guess as well to see whether certain things like empathy, would he demonstrate that. I remember my son went to sit down and then we blinked and then he wasn't there again. He was like near the window. So she'd be like calling him, come sit down, look, oh, look at the doll, look at the brush. And then it was like, Callum, can you brush the doll's hair? Or Callum, can you put the shoes on the doll? Or Callum, my son was still near the window. I was so excited because I just thought, finally, you know, finally I've got to see someone. And I guess it was fairly quick in my eyes because I thought it'd be months, and then you're told there is a waiting list. This was just the initial assessment. There needs to be a thorough assessment with not just the paediatrician, but the clinical psychologist, be more than one professional that assessed my son in order to conclude whether he had autism or something else, or nothing at all. But from our point, we could clearly see there was something. So 18 months came and went. We're talking about over 2 years wait, to the point where I had to get the MP involved. That's for another video. At the time we wanted to move house and we held off because of that. And I don't know if you're aware, but if you started an assessment via your GP and you're now on the waiting list to see the paediatrician of that area, if you move GP, you have to start again. I mean, if someone else out there, if your experience is different, please, you know, comment below, but that wasn't my experience. And catchments still do exist. Don't let anyone fool you, because when we've moved this time, I mentioned it to the receptionist in the GP surgery that, oh, we're just moving down the road about 10 minutes, thinking, oh, they won't, you know, they'll let us stay. It was about 15 minutes, but I was like, oh, it's just 10 minutes. She was like, what's your new postcode, please? I was like, oh, great. So I said it, and she was like, no, sorry, you're out of the catchment. Don't worry, we'll give you a transfer out of here, 28 days or whatever it was. You need to think about, if you're in a situation where you want to move as a family, you really need to think about how far into the waiting time you are. I mean, if it's only a couple of weeks, then move. You've not really missed out on anything. What I was really disappointed about, and this isn't me shading the medical service or anything like that, because I also work in a job where there's pressure, there's budget cuts. I get it. I think they're doing an amazing job, let me add that. But I really believe in treating others how you'd like to be treated. And at times us SEN families look like we've got a chip on our shoulder. My frustration, maybe this is for another video, my frustration is the lack of communication, the lack of updates. I'm not asking for an update every 6 weeks or every 3 months, but just something. Like, you're telling me you had seen my son this day and I don't hear anything for almost 2 years. The best thing you could do as well is, if you have any other questions, if you have any other concerns, write them down so that, you know, you don't forget that once you reach the appointment, because you may have to be waiting a very, very long time before you hear from anyone again. My advice as well, if I could speak to me of how many years ago, I would have asked for the paediatrician's email address. Now, you might get a no, or they may actually give you the generic one for the centre, and that's just another way of communicating if no one picks up their phone. So just to say, guys, this is not a sprint, it's a marathon, and we're in this together. Take care. Bye.